Hello, and welcome back to another episode. Now, today I'm filming in a slightly different location. I'm actually next to my bed. Incidentally, while we're here, you might as well see the super cool print that my wife wanted above our bed. We even made a super cool Lego frame for it. I don't know what to say. I mean, my grandparents had the Pope above the bed. We have Harley and Joker. This is my wardrobe, and this cupboard here is what I want to talk to you about today. And also, incidentally, today, sadly, that allergy reaction has come back. I have no idea what it is that I'm allergic to, but we're trying to narrow it down, and hopefully it'll go away. But apologies for the face. But hopefully you're not here for the face. Rather, you're here to hear what it is that the face has to say. And today I would like to talk a little bit more about a topic that I first touched on back in 2015, I think, and that is the topic of collecting and collections, and the reason why people choose to collect items, why I choose to collect and also don't collect certain things. For example, back then I was talking about deliberately, specifically not taking on someone else's collection of 50,000-ish comics. You know, I mean, it was on the face of it is a crazy thing to say no to. But you know, I had good reasons for that, and this really has come back into my mind following a conversation that I had yesterday with someone who was running a shop in Byker. Byker is a town a couple of miles away from me, and yesterday I was driving up the high street and I saw something really interesting in the window. I saw a Batman black and white statue. Now, if you're into these statues, you'll know what I mean. I'll put a picture on the screen, but there's a whole range of statues that have been made and finished by a specific artist, I believe. They are popular amongst the statue collecting community. In particular, for example, the animated series statues are very popular. And this one was just sat in the window of what looked like a charity shop, and it's not a charity shop, it's a second-hand store, and there's a difference. Much as to say that they're running a profit, not a charity. But I stopped, and I thought, well, if it's in the window, it might be going for a reasonable price. I'll have a look. And it was 50 quid. And actually, they had 4 or 5 more of these statues inside the shop on the shelves for 50 quid each, which is a good price, but out of my price range. So I didn't buy it, but I did get talking to the lady behind the counter, and she was in the process of sorting through hundreds, thousands, in fact, of toys and figures. And I think she's a reseller. I think people might term her. I think it seems that she buys in bulk and then sells off individually these toys. And we just got talking about why she had the statues, and it turned out that her son is a huge Batman fan and collector. That one day he just came into the store and said, "Look, Mum, I just need to get rid of this stuff. It's filling up my house. It's under my feet, and frankly, I'm not enjoying it anymore. I want to sell them." And she was like, "Are you sure?" Because they've been buying these statues bit by bit for him for Christmas and birthday, this kind of thing. So every time a big present giving day came up, they knew exactly what to buy him. Which I said, that's an advantage in some respects, isn't it? You don't have to ask, you don't have to guess, you don't have to hope that he's going to like it. But anyway, he got to the point where he wanted to get rid of this stuff, and I looked through, for example, some of the graphic novels that they had for sale, and actually they had a couple that I was interested in. One of them was Superman Grounded. Looks like an interesting story, so I picked that up while I was there. But during the conversation, I was sort of saying, yeah, well, collecting, you have to be enjoying what you collect. You have to love what you collect. And I mentioned this 50,000 comics collection that I'd been offered, and how the person loved it and wanted to pass on the collection to someone who would love it and add to it equally. And I said I couldn't take on that sort of responsibility. And then she said, "Yeah, but the thing is, you never get your value back for comics, do you?" And I was like, "Well, no, that's true," but I thought she'd sort of missed the point of what I was saying. So we kind of carried on. So I went on to mention that, for example, when it comes to toys, I'm the sort of person who likes to open the toy I like to play with my toys, and even if it has some collecting value, I'm not the sort of collector who keeps everything in box. And at this point, she was she was horrified and sort of mentioned how they'd recently bought the entire magazine series. I think the Eagle Moss magazine series of Batman vehicles. So I think Batman, the Bat Family, and the Rogues Gallery vehicles were issued with magazines, and that cost them £1,000 or thereabouts. She said anyway, to buy this series outright, and again as a gift to her son, very lucky boy, incidentally, and she said, but obviously we didn't. He hasn't opened them. And I said, oh right, so he hasn't opened the toys. And she goes, no, he hasn't. He hasn't unwrapped any of it. So he hasn't even looked at the magazines that came with these boxed toys, or these. Well, they're more like dioramas, aren't they? Because I've got the Arkham Asylum Batmobile, the computer game Batmobile, and it's sort of bolted down to a plastic stand. So they're not toys; they're more like dioramas. But he hasn't looked at any of the magazines. He hasn't, and I sort of said, yeah, I couldn't do that. I just couldn't do that. I'd have to read the magazines. I'd have to, use them, get something out of them. And she goes, yeah, but you wouldn't get your money back. And again, we hit this sort of philosophical wall when it comes to collecting and what collecting is. So it quickly became apparent that we were coming at this from two different schools of thought. I'm a collector who is a very passionate collector. I love the things that I collect, but I only pick up and collect things that I'm going to use, that I want to enjoy, I want to look at, or I have a desire to know more about. I'm not really, I suppose, an investment collector. I certainly don't like having multiples of things, for example, and I'm not necessarily thinking about selling on my collection at any point. It's for the love of it, and also for the love of using and doing and having and sharing it, I guess. Whereas she was coming from the opposite end of the spectrum. She was an investment collector, if you see what I mean. But ironically, ultimately, the whole reason we were having this conversation at all is because both of these philosophies, in this instance, had actually come to naught. They'd both been failed. For example, the initial reason that he came in to get rid of this stuff, apparently, is because he wasn't enjoying the collection. So that, my philosophy, my strand of the reason for collecting wasn't being met, in so much as he had cupboards of stuff, of limited edition, exciting, boxed up things that he daren't open, he daren't look at, he daren't even get dust on. He had had it backed up in the cupboard, so he didn't even know what was at the back of these drawers and at the back of the shelves. And so he just wasn't enjoying it. He had, I suppose, an idea of a collection as opposed to actually a collection. He didn't have the things, for example, as I do here with my clothes, books that he's making his way through, things that, yes, okay, it may take a while to get to the bottom of some of these piles, but nonetheless, they're here to be used and to be thumbed and to be enjoyed. He wasn't getting that. But also, ultimately, the collecting for investment strand of this argument had kind of failed as well. The whole reason I was in the shop was because they were selling these very particular, fairly niche items, these black and white ceramic Batman statues, in a shop window on the high street in Byker. Now, I don't have the money to buy them. Most people in Byker, I would argue, don't have the disposable income to spend on, certainly not all of the statues. They may buy one or two of them. But unless you're going to put the time and effort in at the back end, I guess, to find the right people to sell to, then that argument of collecting because of it being an investment has also sort of gone out the window, no pun intended. I mean, for example, she was saying that the next week she was going to be breaking up that 1,000 magazine collection of Batman automobilia and putting it in the window and hoping people would stop by and have a look. And I was thinking, oh God, sun damage, and you're not going to get £1,000 back for all that investment, I guess. And I sort of went away feeling a little bit sad, actually. I came away with 4 new graphic novels, 2 of which actually were Ultimate Spider-Man collections. I'm really getting into Ultimate Spider-Man since I started enjoying the Ultimate Spider-Man game on GameCube. But I went away a bit sad, because it kind of made me think, well, that is a collector who is clearly passionate. I mean, he really does, it seems, love especially Batman as much as I do, probably, possibly even more than I do. But clearly something had gone wrong, and it seems that maybe it's about balance. And this is why this is an extension of that initial 2015 video. This is a bit more open-ended as well, because I don't really have an answer. I have an idea, and that is my idea of collecting and the reasons I collect. But I can't help but think that really what we see here is a collection that's kind of just imploded with its own weight. There's too much of the stuff to enjoy it, too much of the stuff in a certain condition to open it, and too much of the stuff in a certain condition to sell it effectively, without a significant time investment, finding the right forums online, talking to the right eBay sellers or whatever, or just seeking out the right contacts, because there will be people out there who want to pay market value for, especially, for example, the limited edition statues, or maybe getting the Eaglemoss magazine collection. But you're not going to find that in a shop window in Byker. Now, don't get me wrong, I fully recognize that I benefit from and take advantage of this scenario, this whole situation. For example, this is a copy of Arkham Asylum: A Serious House on a Serious Earth, the 15th anniversary sort of deluxe edition. But the other day I came across a first printing of this book, first edition, first printing, obviously thinner edition without the script at the back, for £1.50 in a local charity shop, and of course I picked it up. I certainly don't like having multiples of things, for example, and I picked it up because I loved the book, incidentally, and I thought, oh yes, first edition, why not? So in that sense, I'm completely benefiting from people's collections imploding and these books and materials being sold in a less than ideal way. And also, I wouldn't want it any other way. I like that I can find that on my high street. But I also feel, I suppose, the tragedy of it. The fact that there are books like, for example, The Art of Dead Space here, Wolverine Origin, let's see, I don't know, Ronin, Frank Miller's Ronin book, Street Fighter 2, the animated movie, the sort of the manga of that. This book here, Batman Death Mask. It's a actually back to front Japanese story, in fact, of Batman. These are actually books that are going to be hard to sell in some respects anywhere. They have a sort of a certain niche appeal already. For example, not every geek is a fan of Dead Space. Not every Batman fan wants to read a manga back to front graphic novel of a Japanese Batman. It is hard, I suppose, to not have some of this stuff just implode and then be sold cheaply or less than ideally. But it just feels a bit of a shame, I suppose, is what I'm getting at. And this brings me back to that question of what is a collection? Why do I collect? And whether or not collectors need to be more discerning. Well, frankly, actually, whether or not actually my attitude is wrong, whether or not I need to be thinking about collecting to invest. Am I just wasting my money on things that have limited appeal, that are going to end up in a charity shop possibly at some point? They won't, under my, if I have anything to say about it. But you know what I mean. It just raises all these questions. It throws them up in the air. And yesterday I came away from that particular conversation feeling a little bit downhearted, because there was passion there. There was love of the topic and of the subject matter and of the items, the artifacts, as it were, that were on sale. But it was ending in a slightly grim and messy way. Oh man, these things. The Batman Forever comic, sort of, comic of the movie, and the Batman Forever official movie book. This has, as it were, limited appeal. And so I suppose, quite unusually for me on this channel, I don't really have a final thought, a crystallized notion. All I know is that it confounds me sometimes, this world of collecting. And what do you think? What are your thoughts? What are your motivations for collecting? Do you think that we should be concerned about the ultimate destination of a collection? Should, for example, I have a little cupboard of books next to my bed that I'm just diving into and just enjoying, or should I be more serious about my collection? Should I have everything in dust jackets and have it ready to be sold at a moment's notice to the highest bidder? Yeah, it's an odd one. All I know is how I feel about collecting, but yeah, yesterday just threw up some questions. Anyway, guys, as ever, until next time, do take care. Bye bye.